Disappointing. This is the first word that springs to mind when reflecting on the second episode of Minecraft Story Mode. In my review of the first episode, I described it as a promising start to a new series. However, if episode 2 is indicative of future episodes, this could end up being the weakest Telltale series in recent memory. That's not to say that episode 2 of Story Mode is terrible, it's just not of the level of quality we've come to expect from Telltale. The one thing I really liked in this episode is the opening. At the end of episode 1, you were faced with a choice between going to find Magnus the Rogue or Ellegaard the Redstone Engineer. This choice played a huge part in the first half of episode 2. You get a completely different chunk of story depending on who you chose to go after. The downside is I played through both of these stories and found that the story with Magnus is far better, which a lot of people will never know. I myself wouldn't have known if I wasn't planning to review this episode, seeing as I chose to search for Ellegaard in my main playthrough. This episode also does almost nothing to move the story forward, and feels a little bit padded, which is shocking as this episode only clocks in at about an hour long, about half the length of most Telltale episodes. The major thing that we're meant to take away from this episode is the introduction of two more heroes with Ellegaard and Magnus. The problem is, both of these characters are uninteresting, which doesn't help the already lacking cast. Ellegaard is oblivious to her surroundings and won't listen to reason most of the time, and Magnus is just annoying and arrogant. The few glimpses of entertainment from these two new characters are when we see them together. Ellegaard and Magnus have no respect for each other and bicker constantly. I did like the juxtaposition of these characters being heroes in everyone's minds, but petty and irritating in reality. But this doesn't change the fact that this episode is focused on characters who you just don't want to be around. In terms of gameplay, episode 2 doesn't bring anything new to the table, but I still do love the combat in story mode. Having control over the character is certainly more fun than most of the QuickTime event fights in other Telltale games. After finishing episode 2 of story mode, I was left wondering if this episode was dragged down by Telltale's overly ambitious nature, seeing as they're working on so many series at once. It is concerning that this is the first episode of any Telltale game where I thought that they may have bitten off more than they can chew. If you want to play a Telltale game, I'd be wary of story mode. Play Tales from the Borderlands or Game of Thrones instead. They're both way better and a far better use of your time and money. Episode 2 is very disappointing, but I'm still hoping the series will rebound with episode 3. I'm giving episode 2 of Minecraft Story Mode a 5. If you enjoy my reviews, please like and subscribe or follow me on Twitter @ChrisFremo.